Bradford Mallory never expected that a single, reckless wager could change the course of his life forever. On a crisp autumn evening in New York City, he found himself surrounded by a circle of influential friends at an exclusive private club, a place where fortunes were made and lost over whispered deals and knowing glances. As the conversation drifted from business ventures to the unpredictability of life, a seemingly offhand remark sparked an idea in Bradford's keen mind. With a mischievous glimmer in his eye, he proposed a bet that was as audacious as it was scandalous. He would marry a woman renowned for her rebellious spirit and enigmatic charm, a woman who defied the conventions of the society that so desperately sought order in his meticulously planned world. The woman in question was Briar Winter, a name that had long circulated in whispered rumors among the social elite. Unlike the polished, predictable figures that frequented Bradford's circles, Briar embodied a raw, untamed energy. Her reputation was a patchwork of conflicting tales, stories of wild nights, fierce independence, and a defiant disregard for societal expectations. To Bradford, however, these tales only added layers of intrigue to her character, making the bet not merely a test of his resolve, but a daring experiment in unraveling the mysteries of a soul that danced dangerously close to chaos. In the days that followed the bet, Bradford became consumed with thoughts of Briar. He spent countless hours poring over old articles and elusive references that hinted at her past, trying to decipher whether she was a mere myth or a force of nature waiting to be discovered. His curiosity was not born out of mere vanity or the desire for conquest, rather, it was the allure of the unknown that called to him. Bradford's world, built on the certainty of numbers and contracts, now found itself teetering on the edge of unpredictable passion. The bet, originally a game meant to prove his mastery over life's uncertainties, had evolved into a challenge that touched the very core of his identity. Amid the swirling debates and cynical laughter of his peers, Bradford's determination only grew. He began to sketch out plans, not just for the wedding that would inevitably follow, but for the life he imagined with this elusive woman. In the quiet solitude of his luxurious penthouse, he envisioned long, moonlit walks along cobblestone streets, deep conversations that stretched into the early hours, and a love that would be as tumultuous as it was transformative. Each thought was a silent promise, a commitment to uncovering the truth behind Briar's defiant exterior and finding the delicate balance between her wildness and the vulnerability that he suspected lay hidden beneath. Yet, as the bet loomed ever closer to its realization, Bradford was not blind to the risks. His friends, though entertained by the prospect, warned him of the dangers of falling for someone whose life was shrouded in constant rebellion. But in Bradford's heart, the challenge was irresistible. The bet was more than a game, it was an invitation to confront his deepest uncertainties about control, passion, and the unpredictable nature of true connection. With each passing day, his resolve hardened, and the line between wager and genuine desire began to blur. As the night of their first encounter approached, Bradford prepared himself for an experience that would test every facet of his being. He knew that beyond the veneer of bravado and calculated risk, this bet might lead him to a revelation that could shatter his carefully constructed world or, perhaps, rebuild it entirely. In the silence before the storm, as the city pulsed with anticipation and the distant hum of traffic merged with his racing thoughts, Bradford Mallory set out on a path where the promise of chaos was laced with the potential for a love so profound that it could defy the very laws of fate. The night of their long-anticipated encounter arrived with an air of electric anticipation. Bradford Mallory found himself in a lavish gallery nestled in the heart of Manhattan, where art and decadence merged to create an atmosphere of opulent allure. The venue, filled with rare paintings and avant-garde sculptures, buzzed with whispers of excitement as the city's elite mingled beneath the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. Bradford, dressed in a tailored suit that spoke of his refined taste and unyielding determination, navigated the room with a mixture of calculated charm and raw curiosity. Across the crowded space, amidst the swirl of fashionable guests, he first saw Briar Winter. She stood apart, a striking figure whose presence disrupted the expected order of the evening. Clad in a dress that balanced elegance with an unmistakable edge, she moved with a graceful defiance that immediately captivated him. Every step she took seemed to challenge the staid conventions of the world around her, as if she were a living rebellion against the monotony of high society. Her eyes, intense and unyielding, scanned the room with a mixture of mischief and guarded secrets, inviting and intimidating all at once. As the night unfolded, their paths converged like two fated currents. Bradford's approach was deliberate yet hesitant, for he knew that this was more than just a test of his wager, it was an encounter with a mystery he was determined to unravel. The initial conversation was layered with subtle provocations and playful banter, each remark hinting at deeper truths buried beneath Briar's provocative exterior. While the chatter around them revolved around art and society's latest scandals, their dialogue delved into themes of freedom, defiance, and the unpredictability of passion. Briar, with a voice that resonated like a melody of rebellion, spoke of her disdain for the rigid rules of a world that prized conformity over authenticity. Her words, though laced with humor and irony, carried an undercurrent of genuine pain, an echo of past experiences that had shaped her into the fierce individual she was today. Bradford listened intently, his mind racing as he pieced together the fragments of her story. Every detail she shared, every fleeting glance that revealed both vulnerability and strength, pulled him deeper into a realm where logic and desire intertwined. Throughout the evening, moments of silence were filled with charged glances and unspoken understandings. At one point, as they found themselves alone on a balcony overlooking the glittering cityscape, the air seemed to thicken with an almost palpable magnetism. Bradford confessed that beneath his carefully constructed persona lay a restless soul, yearning for something real and untamed, a quality he saw mirrored in Briar's very being. In that suspended moment, with the distant hum of the city below and the cool night air caressing their skin, the barriers between them began to crumble. Yet, even as their connection deepened, an air of uncertainty lingered. Bradford's inner conflict was evident, he was drawn to the enigma that was Briar, yet he remained acutely aware of the wager that had brought them together. Every smile she offered, every spark in her eyes, was a reminder of the delicate line he walked between a game of chance and the unpredictable realm of genuine emotion. Briar, too, sensed the weight of unspoken expectations, and while her words danced around the subject, they never fully revealed the tumultuous history that had forged her identity. As the night drew to a close, the promise of what could be began to outweigh the constraints of the original bet. Bradford left the gallery with a mind swirling with possibilities and a heart that had started to feel the stirrings of something extraordinary. In the echo of their brief, impassioned encounter, both understood that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet laden with the potential for a transformative love that defied convention. The meeting had ignited a spark, a volatile mix of attraction, mystery, and a mutual hunger for freedom, that promised to reshape their lives in ways neither could have foreseen. The day of the wedding arrived as a tapestry of conflicting emotions, blending anticipation with a lingering sense of uncertainty. Bradford Mallory stood before a grand mirror in his lavish dressing room, meticulously adjusting his tailored suit while his mind raced through the events of the previous night. The image he saw, a man of wealth and calculated resolve, contrasted sharply with the tumult of emotions stirring within him. Every detail of the upcoming ceremony, from the polished silver cutlery to the soft murmur of an expectant crowd, seemed to underscore the gravity of his wager. Yet beneath the sheen of opulence lay an undercurrent of something profoundly real. In a nearby room, Briar Winter prepared herself with a quiet intensity. The soft morning light filtered through lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on her face as she stood before a modest mirror. There was an air of vulnerability about her, hidden behind the rebellious persona that had captivated so many. Her heart, ever cautious yet undeniably yearning for connection, pounded in time with the whispered secrets of her past. Today was not merely about fulfilling a bet, it was a turning point where her carefully guarded self would be laid bare before an audience that expected nothing less than perfection. As she applied the final touches of makeup, Briar wondered if the delicate balance between illusion and truth could ever be maintained when every eye was on her. The ceremony unfolded in an ornate hall, its vaulted ceilings and sweeping chandeliers casting a glow of timeless elegance over the proceedings. Guests, dressed in their finest, murmured with excitement as they took their seats, their eyes darting between the ceremonial stage and the couple who would soon unite their fates. Bradford's heart pounded as he walked down the aisle, each step resonating like a drumbeat that signaled both his determination and the weight of his secret wager. Every guest, every whispered comment, served as a reminder that this was not just a union of two souls, it was a public declaration of a wager that had challenged the norms of their world. As the ceremony reached its zenith, vows were exchanged in a language that blurred the lines between promise and performance. Bradford's voice, steady yet filled with an undercurrent of trepidation, spoke of eternal devotion and the promise to uncover the depths of Briar's mysterious soul. Briar, in turn, offered words that were as enigmatic as they were heartfelt, hinting at a past riddled with pain and the courage it took to dream of something better. In that moment, surrounded by the grandeur of tradition and the soft murmurs of approval, the reality of their union began to crystallize. It was a union built not solely on the thrill of a bet, but on the fragile hope that both could find redemption and love in each other. The reception that followed was a vibrant celebration, a fusion of clinking glasses, laughter, and the subtle cadence of whispered alliances. Yet amidst the gaiety, Bradford's mind could not shake the lingering questions about the true nature of the woman he had vowed to marry. Late into the night, as the formalities waned and the echoes of celebration softened, the couple retreated to the quiet intimacy of their private chamber. It was there, under the gentle glow of candlelight and the hushed secrets of a room that had witnessed both joy and sorrow, that the first real test of their bond began. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, Bradford approached Briar with a mix of eagerness and trepidation. In the delicate silence of that final hour, the layers of their public personas started to peel away, revealing the raw, unguarded truth beneath. In a moment fraught with both discovery and disbelief, Bradford found himself confronting an unexpected revelation. Despite all the wild rumors and the fierce independence that defined her, Briar was, in truth, untouched by the experiences that had so long fueled the myth surrounding her. The realization sent a tremor through him, a collision of expectation and reality that left him momentarily speechless. This revelation did not diminish the magnetic pull he felt towards her, instead, it deepened the mystery. Bradford's mind raced to reconcile the fierce, defiant spirit that had enchanted him with the quiet, unspoiled vulnerability that now lay exposed before him. In that pivotal moment, the wager transformed from a mere test of bravado into a profound exploration of identity and desire. The quiet shock of her innocence became a symbol of the dualities within Briar, the wild and the gentle, the public and the hidden, and it stirred in Bradford an even greater determination to understand her completely. Their wedding night, once envisioned as the culmination of a daring bet, had metamorphosed into an intimate unveiling of souls. In the soft interplay of whispered confessions and tender caresses, Bradford and Briar began to navigate the intricate labyrinth of their emotions. Every touch, every glance, carried the weight of unspoken promises and the hope that, together, they could transcend the confines of a game to create something enduring and transformative. The night became a crucible, where illusions were shattered and truths, however delicate, were laid bare, a beginning marked not by the thrill of conquest, but by the vulnerability of two hearts daring to love beyond the stakes. Late one rain-soaked evening, when the city's clamor had softened to a distant murmur and the only light came from the soft glow of a solitary street lamp filtering through gauzy curtains, Briar and Bradford found themselves alone in the quiet sanctuary of their new home. The lingering tension of the day, the weight of unspoken promises and the electric uncertainty of their union, gave way to a profound stillness, a moment suspended between past and present. It was then, in that hushed vulnerability, that Briar's guarded walls began to crumble, revealing the shadows of a past that had shaped every rebellious beat of her heart. Seated together in a modest, time-worn living room, Briar's gaze drifted toward the window as if seeking refuge in the raindrops dancing on the pavement below. Her eyes, usually so fierce and defiant, softened with a quiet melancholy that spoke of memories too painful to fully escape. Bradford, whose own heart was still reeling from the unexpected discoveries of their wedding night, reached out with a gentle touch, an unspoken invitation to share, to let him into the labyrinth of her history. After a long silence filled only by the rhythmic patter of rain, she began to speak in a voice that trembled with both sorrow and relief. Briar recounted a childhood cloaked in hardship, a time when the world seemed determined to stifle her very spirit. She spoke of a small, dilapidated house on the outskirts of a forgotten town, where every creaking floorboard and every whisper of wind carried the weight of unfulfilled dreams. In that home, the rules were rigid and unyielding, imposed by a family whose love was conditional and whose expectations were as crushing as the heavy summer air. There were moments, she recalled, when the only escape was found in the stolen hours of twilight, wandering through empty fields and broken sidewalks, searching for a glimmer of freedom amidst the shadows. Bradford listened intently, his expression a tapestry of empathy and quiet astonishment, as each word painted a vivid portrait of the struggles that had forged her fierce independence. As Briar's narrative unfolded, she detailed the bittersweet rebellion that had begun in those early years, a rebellion not born solely of defiance but of necessity. In the oppressive confines of her youth, she discovered that the only way to carve out a space for her own identity was to shatter the expectations that threatened to define her. She recalled the secret moments when, under the veil of darkness, she would scribble dreams and wild aspirations in a battered notebook, each line a promise to herself that she would one day escape the suffocating confines of her past. The act of writing became her sanctuary, a silent protest against a fate that had long been preordained. Bradford felt an unfamiliar stirring within him, an appreciation not just for the enigmatic woman before him but for the resilience that had allowed her to rise, time and again, from the ashes of her own despair. In the midst of her recollections, Briar's tone shifted from the painful echoes of her early life to the transformative moments that had redefined her existence. She spoke of a mentor, a kindly, eccentric figure who had taken her under his wing during one of the bleakest periods of her adolescence. This person, with a heart full of quiet wisdom and an unyielding belief in her potential, had shown her that the beauty of life lay not in conforming to the expectations of others but in embracing the raw, unpredictable nature of her own spirit. Through his guidance, she learned to see her past not as a chain of limitations, but as the very foundation upon which her future would be built. Bradford, moved by the depth of her revelations, silently marveled at the intricate interplay of light and darkness in her story, a narrative where pain was interwoven with hope and sorrow gave way to the promise of renewal. As the conversation deepened, the room itself seemed to breathe with the energy of shared confidences. Bradford found himself compelled to share fragments of his own past, the moments of uncertainty and the echoes of failure that had driven him to pursue a life defined by calculated risks and high stakes. Their words, tentative at first, soon blossomed into a genuine exchange of vulnerabilities, each confession a brick laid in the fragile bridge between two very different worlds. In that intimate communion, the veneer of the wager faded away, leaving behind a raw truth, that every person, regardless of their outward bravado or seemingly impenetrable defiance, carried within them the indelible marks of their history. The rain continued its steady cadence outside, a gentle reminder that even the darkest storms eventually give way to the promise of dawn. As the hours slipped by, the barriers that had long separated Bradford and Briar melted into the background, replaced by a profound recognition of shared human frailty. Bradford, whose life had been ruled by the precision of calculated risks, began to understand that the most valuable gamble was one taken with the heart. Briar, in turn, allowed herself a moment of unguarded vulnerability, acknowledging that the scars of her past were not a burden to hide but a testament to her survival and the unyielding beauty of her soul. In that long, unbroken conversation, the two found solace in the truth of each other's experiences, a truth that transcended the confines of their initial wager and promised a future filled with the potential for healing and love. The echoes of Briar's childhood, once a source of pain, now resonated as the foundation of her strength. And as Bradford reached out to hold her hand in a silent gesture of support, both understood that the journey ahead, though fraught with uncertainty, was one they were now willing to undertake together. In the gentle light of that rain-drenched evening, the shadows of the past merged with the promise of a new beginning, setting the stage for a love story that was as complex and transformative as the lives they had once led. In the days following that fateful night of revelations, the air between Bradford and Briar grew thick with an intensity that was equal parts passion and uncertainty. Their once carefully constructed world of plans and wagers now lay in disarray, replaced by raw emotions that neither had anticipated. Every moment they shared became a battleground for conflicting desires, the fierce need to cling to one another, counterbalanced by the nagging fear that the past might once again seize control. One evening, as twilight faded into a dusky haze over the city, Bradford found himself unable to concentrate on the myriad responsibilities of his high-powered life. Instead, his thoughts wandered relentlessly to Briar, whose image haunted him like a beautiful, unresolved melody. The memory of her soft confessions mingled with the passionate glances they exchanged, creating a potent mix of longing and trepidation. Determined to bridge the growing chasm between their guarded hearts, he sought to recapture the spark that had first drawn him to her rebellious allure. Their reunion took place in an unexpectedly intimate setting, a secluded corner of a bustling urban park, where the vibrant pulse of the city seemed to fade into a soft background hum. Bradford arrived early, his mind a tumult of plans and unsaid apologies, while Briar appeared moments later, her expression a blend of cautious optimism and lingering melancholy. The natural beauty of the park, the rustling of leaves, the gentle murmur of a nearby fountain, served as a silent witness to their tentative reconnection. As they strolled along winding paths, Bradford took a moment to break the silence that had grown heavy between them. With a voice that trembled with sincerity, he admitted that the discovery of Briar's untouched past had shaken him more profoundly than he had ever expected. It was not the shock of her innocence alone that unsettled him, but rather the revelation that the fierce, defiant woman he had been chasing might harbor an inner vulnerability as profound as his own. He confessed that every shared secret, every painful memory she had divulged, had opened a door into a realm of emotions he had long kept at bay, a realm where the stakes were far higher than any wager he could have ever conceived. Briar listened intently, her eyes reflecting the complexity of her own feelings. In response, she recounted the moments when her fierce exterior had been nothing more than a fragile shield, meticulously constructed to hide the wounds of her past. She spoke of nights spent alone in the quiet darkness, when the weight of her memories pressed down upon her, and the only solace she could find was in the fleeting moments of rebellious freedom. Her words, soft yet laden with conviction, painted a portrait of a woman who had learned to embrace her scars as badges of survival, a testament to the relentless spirit that had carried her through the darkest times. Their conversation meandered through memories of pain and flashes of hope, until the initial rigidity of their interaction began to dissolve into something more fluid and genuine. The air around them seemed to vibrate with the merging of their souls, a fusion of dreams, regrets, and a yearning for redemption. In a moment that felt suspended in time, Bradford reached out to gently brush away a stray tear that glistened on Briar's cheek. The touch was tender, filled with an unspoken promise of understanding and acceptance, and it marked the turning point where their raw vulnerabilities began to interlace into a shared tapestry of passion. As the night deepened, so did the intensity of their connection. They found themselves speaking in hushed tones about the future, a future that was as uncertain as it was inviting. Bradford's mind, usually so dominated by logic and calculated risks, now reveled in the chaotic beauty of a life that defied simple explanations. Briar, too, allowed herself to dream beyond the painful echoes of her past, her eyes reflecting the possibility of a love that could heal even the deepest of wounds. Yet, the path ahead was not without its perils. As they sat on a weathered bench beneath the ancient boughs of a towering oak, the lingering shadows of their personal histories loomed large. The conversation took on a somber note as Bradford expressed his fears of losing himself in the turbulence of their emotions, while Briar admitted the constant battle to trust and let go of the chains of her upbringing. In that honest exchange, the air was heavy with the realization that true intimacy demanded not only passion and surrender but also the courage to confront the painful truths of one's past. In the glow of a waning moon, as the park slowly emptied and the city's distant lights shimmered like stars, Bradford and Briar sat together in reflective silence. It was in that quiet moment that they both recognized the significance of their shared vulnerability, a moment of clarity where the promise of a transformative love outshone the darkness of their former lives. Their hearts, bruised yet resilient, beat in unison, heralding the beginning of a journey where every step forward was a testament to their willingness to embrace both the ecstasy and the agony of love. The evening ended with a tentative yet profound embrace, a silent pact to navigate the labyrinth of their emotions together, regardless of the uncertainties that lay ahead. As they parted ways under the shelter of the night, each carried with them the lingering warmth of the encounter, a beacon of hope that, in the midst of chaos, love had the power to illuminate even the darkest corners of their souls. A chill wind swept through the quiet streets on a brisk winter morning, carrying with it the echoes of secrets long buried. Bradford awoke to an unsettling silence, only to be disturbed by a knock at the door that shattered the calm. When he opened it, an unexpected figure stood there, a man with penetrating eyes and an air of mystery that immediately stirred memories Briar had fought to forget. Everett Clayton, an old acquaintance whose presence had always hinted at unresolved chapters from the past, now reappeared unannounced, his unexpected arrival casting a long shadow over the fragile peace Bradford and Briar had so painstakingly built. Everett's presence was magnetic and unsettling. As he stepped into the opulent foyer, the warm light of the interior clashed with the cold aura he exuded. Bradford, still recovering from the emotional storm of recent days, felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Everett's gaze, intense and probing, lingered on Bradford as though he were silently measuring the strength of his convictions. With an unhurried politeness, Everett explained that he had come to deliver a message, a reminder of past entanglements and choices that had once defined Briar's turbulent life. His tone was both apologetic and enigmatic, and every word he spoke reverberated with a sense of inevitability that neither Bradford or Briar could ignore. Later that day, as the storm outside turned the city into a blur of rain and hurried silhouettes, Bradford and Briar found themselves alone in the study, their private refuge from the intrusive chill of reality. The conversation that followed was as raw as it was necessary. Bradford's voice, usually so composed and deliberate, trembled with a mix of anger and concern as he questioned Briar about her connection to Everett. Briar's eyes, a mirror of the conflicted emotions swirling within her, darted away before she could meet his gaze. The air between them was charged with the gravity of unspoken truths, each moment stretching out, heavy with the weight of memories that both bound and divided them. Briar's recounting of her past was slow and measured, as if each word were a piece of a long-forgotten puzzle finally coming together. She revealed fragments of a time when life had forced her into choices that were neither black nor white but a tangled web of survival and defiance. Everett, she explained, had once been a fleeting presence in her life, a reminder of risks taken in desperation and moments when the world had seemed unbearably harsh. His sudden reappearance, she confessed, was a painful echo of that earlier life, one that she had hoped to leave behind in the relentless pursuit of something purer and more enduring with Bradford. As Briar's voice faltered under the weight of her revelations, Bradford grappled with a storm of conflicting emotions. Every word exposed a vulnerability he had never anticipated, challenging the very foundation of trust they had begun to construct. The room felt suffocatingly small, every object and shadow a testament to the life she had once lived, a life full of danger, uncertainty, and choices made in moments of despair. Yet, amid the betrayal of secrets and the bitter taste of regret, Bradford also saw a glimmer of truth. The same experiences that had scarred her had also forged an indomitable spirit, one that had led her to him in the first place. In the tense silence that followed, Everett's earlier words echoed in Bradford's mind, a cryptic warning about the inescapability of one's past. He recalled the subtle hints that Everett had dropped about unfinished business and promises made in desperation, and the realization struck him that this intrusion was not merely about dredging up old memories. It was a call to confront the unresolved intricacies of Briar's life, a reminder that the ghosts of yesterday could not be easily exorcised without the courage to face them head-on. The ensuing hours unfolded like a quiet storm, each moment a testament to the complexity of human connection and the resilience required to navigate the murky waters of history. Bradford, though hurt and unsettled, found himself softening as he listened to Briar's remorseful admissions. He saw in her eyes the same fierce determination that had initially drawn him to her, a determination to forge a new path despite the scars of old battles. In that dimly lit study, beneath the weight of whispered confessions and shared pain, the couple began the arduous process of reconciliation. Their conversation evolved from accusations and defensiveness to a more heartfelt dialogue, a fragile, tentative promise to confront the shadows together. As the day wore on and the rain subsided into a gentle drizzle, the storm within the room gradually gave way to a cautious understanding. Bradford's initial indignation was tempered by empathy, and Briar's guarded remorse opened the door to a deeper intimacy. In the aftermath of Everett's intrusion, both found themselves at a crossroads, facing the stark reality that the past was not something that could be neatly separated from the present. Instead, it was a living part of their shared story, a narrative that, while painful, also held the potential for growth, healing, and an even more profound love. In the quiet moments that followed, as Bradford and Briar sat side by side in reflective silence, a newfound resolve began to take shape. They realized that, despite the haunting echoes of previous missteps and the unforeseen complications brought forth by Everett's reappearance, their future was still unwritten. With trembling yet determined hearts, they vowed to face whatever challenges lay ahead, embracing both the beauty and the scars of their pasts. It was in that delicate balance between darkness and light that they discovered the true essence of their bond, a love that was as real as it was raw, and as promising as the dawn following the longest night and the weeks that followed the storm of revelations and confrontations. Bradford and Briar found themselves facing a trial that neither had anticipated, a trial not of grand gestures or public scandal, but of loyalty tested in the quiet crucible of everyday life. The fragile peace they had painstakingly built was slowly being eroded by a series of challenges that seemed designed to reveal the true nature of their bond. It began subtly, with a string of coincidences and whispered rumors that painted a picture of betrayal from an unexpected corner. Bradford, ever the cautious businessman, noticed anomalies in his daily routine, a misdirected phone call here, a stray piece of information there, that hinted at the possibility of lingering attachments or unresolved emotions from Briar's past. Though he tried to dismiss these doubts as the product of a stressed mind still reeling from recent events, the seed of uncertainty had been planted deep within him. One crisp evening, as autumn was making its final bow before winter's chill set in, Bradford returned home late from a business trip. The city outside was a maze of shimmering lights and long shadows, but nothing could have prepared him for the scene that awaited inside their spacious, modern living room. The atmosphere was thick with tension. An uncharacteristic silence had replaced the usual warmth that marked their home. It was then that he found a letter tucked discreetly beneath the door, a letter in a handwriting he recognized all too well. The words scrawled across the page spoke of forgotten promises and secret meetings, of a past that refused to remain buried. Bradford's heart pounded as he read the carefully chosen phrases, each sentence a dagger twisting in the fragile bond between them. With the letter clenched tightly in his fist, Bradford confronted Briar that very night. In the dim light of their study, he demanded to know if there was something left unsaid, some hidden part of her life that could undermine the love they were desperately trying to nurture. Briar's eyes, usually alight with defiant spark and vulnerability alike, flickered with a mixture of sorrow and apprehension. For a long, agonizing moment, silence hung between them, charged with unspoken accusations and the fear of losing something irreplaceable. Finally, with a tremor in her voice, she admitted that she had indeed received a message from someone from her past, a message that had stirred old memories and fleeting regrets, but assured him it was nothing more than a misguided attempt at reconnection. She explained that the person in question was a remnant of a time when survival and recklessness dictated her choices, a figure whose presence had been both a comfort and a curse in her youth. The confession ignited a whirlwind of emotions in Bradford. He felt betrayed, not so much by the content of the letter itself, but by the notion that Briar had chosen to keep even a fragment of her past hidden from him. The hurt in his eyes was palpable, a stark contrast to the unwavering confidence he had once carried so effortlessly. In that charged moment, every painful memory of their recent struggles, the revelations of secret histories, the intrusive presence of old acquaintances, seemed to converge into one overwhelming force. Bradford's voice, tight with emotion, demanded honesty and a reaffirmation of their commitment. Briar, with tears threatening to spill over, reached out to him. She spoke of the complexities of her history, of the shadows that sometimes fell across even the brightest parts of her soul. Her words were a desperate attempt to bridge the widening chasm between them, to show him that while her past was an inseparable part of who she was, it no longer defined the future they were meant to build together. In that moment of raw vulnerability, the two found themselves suspended in a battle between love and mistrust. Bradford's hurt was met with Briar's remorse, and in the ensuing silence, the question of loyalty hung heavily in the air. The next few days were a blur of introspection and tense interactions. Bradford grappled with the duality of his love for Briar, a love that was both fierce and fragile. Every shared glance, every tentative touch, was colored by the memory of that painful confrontation. Meanwhile, Briar dedicated herself to mending the fragile trust that had begun to fracture. She sought out moments of quiet conversation, offering explanations that were as intricate as they were heartfelt, and reminding Bradford of the times they had both braved storms together. In the small, everyday acts, a shared breakfast at dawn, a walk through a sunlit park, the couple attempted to rebuild a connection that had been shaken to its core. One evening, as the first snow of winter softly blanketed the city, Bradford and Briar found themselves alone once again in the solitude of their home. The cold beauty of the snow outside mirrored the raw honesty of their conversation inside. Bradford, his voice gentle yet laden with the scars of recent doubts, expressed his fear that the allure of the past might one day overpower the fragile bond they were nurturing. Briar, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, reached out to him and whispered that every part of her history, both the dark and the light, was intertwined with the person she had become. She assured him that while the echoes of her past might occasionally reverberate in unexpected ways, they were not a threat to the future she envisioned with him. Instead, they were the stepping stones that had led her to this moment, to the man who had dared to love her with all her complexities. That night, as the two lay awake in the quiet of their shared sanctuary, the uncertainty slowly gave way to a cautious reconciliation. The test of loyalty, though painful, had forced them to confront not only the ghosts of their individual pasts but also the nature of the trust that bound them together. In the delicate interplay of silence and whispered promises, Bradford and Briar discovered that loyalty was not a single, unchanging word but a dynamic force, one that could be strengthened through honesty, forgiveness, and the willingness to embrace even the darkest parts of each other's histories. Their love, tested by the specter of betrayal and the weight of old memories, began to emerge as something more resilient, a testament to the belief that even in the face of uncertainty, the heart could find a way to mend its wounds and move forward into a future where every trial was a step toward a deeper, more enduring connection. As the first hints of dawn painted the sky in soft hues of lavender and gold, Bradford and Briar stood together on the balcony of their home, their eyes fixed on the awakening city below. The long, turbulent journey they had shared, marked by passionate encounters, heart-wrenching revelations, and moments of almost unbearable doubt, now converged in the quiet promise of a new day. In that silent, transcendent moment, the remnants of past betrayals and lingering fears were gradually replaced by a tentative hope, a belief that the hardships they had endured had only served to fortify the bond between them. Inside the warm glow of their living room, the atmosphere was charged with a profound sense of renewal. Bradford, who had once measured life in calculated risks and cold wagers, now found himself embracing a love that was as messy and unpredictable as it was transformative. Every scar, every whispered regret, had molded them into individuals capable of giving and accepting forgiveness. It was in the gentle cadence of their shared laughter, in the quiet comfort of their intertwined hands, and in the unspoken understanding that they had both emerged from the crucible of their past stronger and more compassionate. Their home, once a battleground of competing secrets and unspoken fears, had evolved into a sanctuary where vulnerability was not a weakness but the very essence of a love that defied all expectations. That morning, as soft light filtered through the curtains and revealed the delicate traces of dew on the windowpane, Bradford took a deep breath and recalled the journey that had led him to this point. He remembered the audacity of that initial wager, the shock of discovering unexpected truths, and the many nights spent wrestling with his own conflicted heart. In that reflection, he realized that every trial, every moment of doubt, had ultimately been a stepping stone toward a deeper, more authentic connection with Briar. She, in her wild, unyielding way, had taught him that the beauty of love lay not in its perfection, but in its resilience, the ability to mend even the most shattered pieces of a once broken soul. Briar, standing quietly beside him, mirrored his introspection. Her eyes, which had once burned with defiant fire and guarded secrecy, now shimmered with a gentle vulnerability. She recalled the long nights of solitude, the silent battles fought against the ghosts of her past, and the painful process of learning to trust again. In Bradford's unwavering support, she discovered a partner who not only accepted her in all her complexity but cherished every facet of her being. Their conversation, measured and sincere, meandered from recollections of their individual hardships to shared dreams of a future where love was a constant, unyielding force, one that would guide them through the inevitable storms of life. Throughout the day, as the city awakened to a rhythm of renewed possibility, Bradford and Briar dedicated themselves to building a future together. They immersed themselves in small yet profound acts of everyday life, preparing breakfast together in their sunlit kitchen, tending to a modest garden on the back terrace, and sharing long, unhurried walks through the quiet streets. Each of these moments became a silent affirmation of their commitment, a reaffirmation that despite the shadows of their past, the light of their shared future was powerful enough to dispel even the deepest darkness. In the midst of these gentle routines, both found themselves quietly defying the expectations of their previous lives. Bradford began to reimagine his world, letting go of the relentless pursuit of material gain in favor of experiences that nurtured the soul. Briar, too, embraced the opportunity to transform her identity, shedding the remnants of a tumultuous past and stepping into a role defined not by rebellion alone but by a deep, abiding capacity for love. Together, they embarked on a journey of healing, one that was not devoid of challenges, but enriched by the lessons learned from every trial they had endured. As twilight descended once again over the city, Bradford and Briar sat side by side on the balcony, their silhouettes merging with the gentle shadows of the evening. The cool air carried with it a whisper of promise, a reminder that every ending heralds a new beginning. In that serene moment, they silently vowed to face whatever the future might hold, not as two fractured individuals clinging to remnants of a painful past, but as a unified pair determined to forge a destiny filled with hope, compassion, and an unwavering trust in the transformative power of love. Their journey, far from over, had evolved into a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a narrative where every trial was met with grace, every wound healed with care, and every new day embraced as an opportunity to rediscover the profound beauty of being truly, irrevocably alive.